Yo, what is up, guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Jermell Charlo knocks out Brian Castano in the 10th round of their rematch at Super Welterweight to become the new undisputed champion at 154 pounds. Going into this fight, I had a weird feeling that Jermell Charlo would prevail by knockout, and that's what happened. I mean, really good fight, really enjoyable fight, though a much different fight to their first fight. In the first fight, I felt that Jermell Charlo gave up a lot of his natural advantages, gave up his distance, and in my opinion, in the first fight, he got outworked by Brian Castano. To me, Castano outworked him on the inside. However, in this rematch, it was much different, and you could see that from the very first round. Jermell Charlo did a much better job of maintaining his distance against Brian Castano and also making sure that his back wasn't touching the ropes as much. Early in the first round, Jermell Charlo's jab was nice and straight, nice and active, and I liked how Jermell Charlo was firing around the guard of Brian Castano. As we know, Castano, he likes to apply pressure in that tight guard, compact style. He'll march forwards and try and close the distance. Jermell Charlo did a good job of arcing his right hand around the guard of Brian Castano. And Charlo was sharpshooting in the first round from the outside. As that round progressed, Castano got into it, and he managed to land some good overhand rights on Jermell Charlo because Jermell at times was carrying his lead left hand low, so Castano would tag him with the overhand right. Round 1, very competitive. Round 2, I felt Charlo boxed really well in round 2. Once again, back not touching the ropes, popping the jab, firing shots around the side of Brian Castano, and he started to mix up body work in round 2. Some hooks to the body by Jermell Charlo in the second round. I felt Castano in the second was guilty of kind of following Charlo around the ring. Still landed some good shots, no doubt about it, but the quality, in my mind, came from Charlo. Now, rounds 3, 4 and 5 were more reminiscent, in my opinion, of the first fight. Because Charlo was giving up ground a little more, and Castano was getting much closer. And yeah, Charlo's back was touching the ropes a lot more. Now, when this fight was fought up close, much like the first fight, I felt that Brian Castano was outworking Jermell Charlo. However, there was one big difference in my opinion. Unlike the first fight, in the second fight, Jermell Charlo answered every single onslaught. So when there was a moment when Brian Castano would come in, would land a combination up close, Jermell Charlo would always answer back with a snappy counter or a two-punch combination, something like that. He was getting outworked, but he was answering, and he was answering with some hard shots. I believe in rounds 3 or 4, Jermell Charlo stiffened the legs of Castano with a left hook. He was giving Castano much more to think about in this second fight. But yeah, rounds 3, 4 and 5, I mean, I think I would be tempted to score them to Castano due to the work rate, but Charlo was getting his own work off. And one thing to add as well, yes, Charlo's head was getting rocked back in these rounds, but the more hurtful shots to my eye looked like they were coming from Jermell Charlo, and you could see that with Castano's face, it was starting to mark up. If memory serves, round 6 was a pretty close round. Jermell trying to box and move, trying to keep it at range, Castano applying that pressure, that sort of thing. But rounds 7 and 8 and 9, I felt Jermell Charlo started to take over. He was moving a lot better in rounds 7, 8 and 9, kind of like how he was doing in the second round. His back wasn't touching the ropes, and anytime it did, he would get out right away, popping the jab, trying to walk Castano into straight right-hand counters. He was splitting the guard with straight shots, and he wasn't there for Brian Castano to really get his work off. Again, Brian Castano, very good fighter, so he was still landing shots, but his activity in rounds 7, 8 and 9 was considerably less than it was in rounds 3, 4 and 5. And I think partly that was due to how Charlo was boxing. Not only was he countering with heavy shots, but he maintained his range much better in these rounds. And also the body attack of Jermell Charlo earlier in the fight It was subtle, Jermell Charlo's body attack. It wasn't like he was going there every other shot, but he was sneaking some shots to the body, and they were hard shots, and I felt it caught up with Castano. And, round 10 was where this fight ended. Castano tried to come out strong and pressure Charlo, tried to land up close, that sort of thing. But Charlo caught Castano up close with a short left hook. It looked like it was partially blocked, but it still kind of jolted Castano's head. He went down and he was on really unsteady legs, like he was really unsteady. He does beat the count, however, but looking at Castano, you could tell that he was done. He had nothing left. And then Charlo finished it. He jumped on him, landed a few shots. Castano went down again, and the referee waved it off. That shot really came out of nowhere for Jermell Charlo. Don't get me wrong, he was landing hard shots, but Castano never looked like he was seriously in trouble. He got semi-buzzed a couple of times, but nothing to make you think that he was going to get knocked out. So the shot came from nowhere, really scrambled the brains of Brian Castano. And yeah, that was all she wrote. Really good fight, man. I really enjoyed this fight. Not as good as the first fight. It was a different fight, but still a really good fight. And as for Jermell Charlo, he is now the undisputed champion at 154 pounds. Where does he go from here? I mean, looking at 154, I mean, what options does he have? Maybe Tim Tszyu, that could be a good fight. But apart from Tim Tszyu, I mean, Sebastian Fundora could be interesting. There is a couple of interesting title defenses for Jermell Charlo at 154, but maybe it's time to now start looking at going to 160 if you're Jermell Charlo. We shall see what happens, but he is the man at 154, undisputed, so congrats to him. As for Brian Castano, he can come again. I mean, the fight was very close up until the knockout. In my opinion, I felt it was very close. Some of the rounds were really hard to score, but he walked into a big shot and that was it. But he can come back. He's still got a future at 154. One fight I'd like to see for Brian Castano would maybe be Liam Smith. I mean, that'd be an interesting fight. But we shall see what happens. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Been your guy Delboy. Peace.